Welcome back to the beautiful, dysfunctional symphony that is Rudeus Greyrat's life. Just when you thought he'd earned a quiet retirement as a family man, Volume 18 masterfully reminds us that his true talent isn't slaying dragons, but accidentally collecting problematic beasts, girls, and starting corporations, while the world saving prophecies patiently wait in line. Another day, another entry in the diary that will never be sent. This is the life of Rudeus Greyrat, our once reclusive otaku, now a seasoned soldier in a secret war against fate itself. He's writing to his father, Paul, a man long gone, as if these inked words could somehow bridge the chasm between the living and the dead. It's a poignant ritual, a way to order his thoughts and steel his nerves for the battles to come. And what battles are those? Not always grand, epic clashes, mind you. No, the daily grind for Rudy is a peculiar mix of high-stakes training and what can only be described as supernatural errand, boy duties. His boss, the mighty and inscrutable Orsted, is a walking, breathing library of all knowledge but a frustratingly terrible teacher. Imagine having Einstein as your tutor, but he can only describe the theory of relativity in abstract concepts, refusing to lift a finger to write the equations on the board. That's Rudy's magical education. He's trying to grasp tier spells, and his genius instructor's explanations are about as intuitive as quantum physics to a goldfish. The poor guy cobbles together a spell based on his old dragon question knowledge, only to be met with Orsted cocking his head in genuine, uncomprehending confusion. It's equal parts hilarious and deeply, deeply frustrating. But Orsted's true value isn't in his pedagogy, it's in his clairvoyance. He's lived through countless time loops, and he's essentially given Rudy the ultimate strategy guide for the game of life. He knows every move the sword god style will make, every spell combination a fire mage will favor. Rudy's role, as dictated by this divine cheat sheet, is to be the ultimate disruptor, use his immense power and his eye of foresight to overwhelm, confuse, and corner his enemies. It's a strategy that plays to his strengths. But one has to wonder, is he becoming a master tactician or just a very efficient puppet, following a pre-written script? His work for Orsted is a fascinating, if morally ambiguous, affair. He's not slaying dragons at every turn. He's saving a random dwarf thief from a labyrinth or buying a slave boy from a merchant. Seemingly random acts of kindness, right? But here's the chilling part. These aren't acts of charity. They're calculated investment. That dwarf thief's tale? High? Utterly insignificant. But her future son will grow up to assassinate someone who would have been a nuisance to Orsted a decade from now. It's a brutal, cold calculus. Orsted is playing 4 chess with time itself, but arranging the pieces on the global board so that when he finally faces the man, God, he's in peak condition. He's optimizing the future, turning potential thorns into mere specks of dust to be brushed aside, saving himself precious mana and effort. It's brilliant and more than a little terrifying. Rudy has become an agent of fate, a fixer, ensuring the timeline proceeds with maximum efficiency. Amidst this cosmic chess game, the man, God's relative silence is deafening. He's not bothering Rudy much on his solo missions. No, his apostles are dogging Orsted's steps, a telling detail. It means a real threat. The true architect of this resistance is Orsted himself. Rudy is just a lieutenant, the one handling the small stuff while the general prepares for the final, decisive battle. It's a humbling and perhaps slightly unnerving realization. But let's pull back from the grand conspiracy and look at the man, because Rudy, for all his power, is still wonderfully, relatably human. His personal life is a whirlwind of equal parts joy and heartache. He's built a proper headquarters, a deceptively simple cottage with a sprawling labyrinthine basement straight out of a spy thriller, complete with a network of teleportation circles. It's the Batcave, if Batman were an anxious father of 2, soon to be 3. And speaking of family, this is where the letter truly comes alive with emotion. His daughter Lucy is a source of pure, unadulterated delight and a tiny personal dagger to his heart. She's 3, loud and lively, but when Riddick comes home after a long mission, she sometimes stares at him like he's a stranger. The man who faces down apostles and kings is utterly defenseless against the blank, questioning gaze of his own daughter. You can feel his heart crack every time she hides behind Sylphie after a hesitant welcome home daddy. It's the price of his chosen path, and he pays it in full every single time. The scene with Orsted and Lucy is pure comedy gold, tinged with significant prophecy. The dreaded dragon god, feared by all, is completely disarmed by a toddler who mistakes his silver hair for her daddy's. The image of the stoic, powerful Orsted letting Lucy yank on his hair, a faint smile on his lips, is one for the ages. It confirms the man, God's hint that Rui's descendants will be key to the final victory. Of course, Orsted immediately glares and warns him not to trust the enemy, but the seed is planted. Hope, it seems, has a very specific shade of blue hair and a giggle that can soften even the hardest of hearts. And then, the family expands. Roxy gives birth, and it's a harrowing ordeal. Rui's description is filled with a palpable, gut-wrenching fear. Roxy, the ever-composed and capable teacher, is reduced to a terrified, white-faced woman clutching his hand, doubting her every ability. It's a stark reminder of the very real dangers of childbirth in this world. His half-magered child is too large for her petite frame, a complication born from his own genes. Thanks to a crack team of Lilia, Aisha, and a hastily snowplowed, in midwife both mother and daughter survive. They name her Laura, and she inherits Roxy's beautiful, distinctive blue hair. A source of pride for Rudy, but a point of anxiety for the mothers, who fear it will make her a target for bullies. Even in moments of joy, the shadow of a harsh world looms. Not to be outdone, the ever-competitive heiress takes Elenalise's casual comment about giving birth to an heir as a personal challenge. What follows is a period Rudy describes with a mix of sheer masculine terror, and let's be honest, a certain amount of pride. Eris, in her single-minded determination to get pregnant, practically works him to the bone. The poor man is being drained like a prune. The solution, when they finally find it, is hilariously fitting. The problem wasn't frequency, but the sheer insane intensity of Eris's daily training. The woman's workout regimen was so brutal, it was likely preventing implantation. Once she was forced to cool it, she finally conceived, retiring from active duty with a proud, swollen-bellied grin that would make her grandfather weep with joy. Yet, amidst all this life and growth, there is a persistent, quiet sorrow. Zenith, Rudy's mother, remains a shell. Her progress has stalled. She cannot speak, and her memories are gone. The most painful part is the sheer helplessness. Even Orsted, with his millennia of accumulated knowledge, has never seen this happen to her and has no solution. Rudy is forced to confront the long haul, to accept that some wounds may not have a magical cure. He asks for his father's forgiveness for not making it his sole priority, a plea that is heavy with the guilt of a son who is pulled in a dozen different directions. He shuts the diary with a thud. This letter to a ghost is done. It has served its purpose, to vent, to reflect, to mourn, and to resolve. Another day of work awaits. Another day of running errands for our dragon god, fighting a hidden war, and desperately trying to be a good husband and father in the fleeting moments of peace he can snatch. This is the chaotic, heartbreaking, and strangely beautiful symphony of Rudeus Greyrat's life. And as he steps onto a teleportation circle, we are left with the overwhelming sense that the most difficult battles are often not fought with sword or spell, but in the quiet moments of a home you're sometimes a stranger in. If it isn't Rudeus Greyrat, everyone's favorite isekai protagonist, out on another one of his jobs. But this isn't a story about slaying gods or toppling kingdoms. No, this is a much more intimate and frankly classic Rudeus affair. This is a story of how a hero can swoop in, save the day, and then, in a single, breathtakingly unhinged moment, shatter every romantic delusion a young woman has ever had. Our scene opens not with Rudy, but with his would-be damsels. Meet Angelique and Femme, two young women trapped in a remote village, their lives defined by a monster-haunted forest and the grim legacy of a disease called Ibri syndrome. They're practical, they're a little desperate, and like most people their age, they dream of something more. Angie, in particular, clutches a childhood memory of a blue-haired adventurer, a real-life Roxy, who passed through their village. This encounter planted a seed in her heart, the fantasy of a dashing savior, a prince charming who would sweep her off her feet. And oh, does the universe decide to deliver? Just as the monstrous Abri lizard, the very beast that killed their parents, is about to make Angie its next meal, a figure descends, not on a white horse, but with the force of a freight train. Enter Rudeus Grey, mouse, gray robe, stoic demeanor, and the casual, overwhelming power to stop a charging dragon lizard with one hand and obliterate its head with a muttered shotgun trigger. He is everything Angie ever dreamed of. Silhouetted by the flames of the monster's corpse, he asks for her by name. Her heart isn't just beating, it's composing epic poetry. This is it. The fantasy is real. What follows is a masterclass in social awkwardness, a slow-motion train wreck where you can see every piece of track buckling in advance. As Rudy, ever the gentleman, carries the unconscious femme back to the village, Angie is in full-blown courtship mode. She's smoothing her hair, inventing reasons to sit close to him, and even in a moment of sheer brave or foolish determination, offering him the only reward she can think of, her own body. And how does our hero, the man who faced down Orsted and the man God, handle this advance? He panics. He doesn't just get flustered. He initiates a protocol we like to call the pervert's emergency egress. He claims he has a chronic disease flaring up. A curious Angie, being an apothecary, leans in, ready to help. And what is the medicine for this terrible affliction? It's not a potion. It's not a pill. It's a small, neatly folded white cloth, which he unfolds to reveal a pair of what can only be young girls' panties. The scene that follows is one of the most gloriously uncomfortable in modern fantasy. For a solid 5 minutes, Rudeus Greyrat, savior of the village, defeater of monsters, buries his face in the fabric, inhaling deeply, licking it, and muttering prayers of thanks to some depraved god of Lingri. The mood isn't just killed, it is ritually sacrificed, set on fire, and its ashes scattered to the four winds. Angie's dream doesn't just end, it spontaneously combusts. The fantasy prince is revealed to be a panty-sniffing connoisseur, and the romantic tension evaporates, replaced by the chilling vacuum of sheer, unadulterated weirdness. But here's the kicker. The moment that elevates this from a simple comedy of errors to something uniquely Mushoku. Even in his moment of supreme social failure, Rudeus is still working the long game for Orsti. As he leaves, he doesn't ask for a lock of her hair or a keepsake. He hands her a picture book and a figurine of a Superd and makes a simple, bizarre request. Tell your future children that the Superd aren't devils. In one fell swoop, we see the entire dichotomy of Rudeus Greyrat, the unstoppable warrior, the hopeless pervert, and the strategic agent of change, planting seeds for a future where prejudice is eroded, one confused village at a time. He saves her life, crushes her dreams, and then commissions her as a propagandist for a demon tribe. All in one afternoon. Angie goes on to live a normal, boring pervert, free life, eventually honoring his request and spreading the tale of the bald, supered warriors of justice. It's a happy ending for her, a small victory for Orsted's cause, and for us, the audience, a stark reminder that in the world of jobless reincarnation, heroism, and crippling perversion are not mutually exclusive. They are, in fact, often two sides of the very same, deeply troubled coin. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is not just a job. It's a Rudeus Greyrat special. And so, our hero returns from a job well done. Rudeus Greyrat, slayer of lizards, savior of villages, and vanquisher of dangerously forward apothecaries, crosses his threshold with one singular beautiful dream, a hot meal, a pat on his children's heads, and an enthusiastic conjugal welcome from one of his wives. It's a simple man's simple dream. What could possibly go wrong? The homecoming is a masterclass in paternal pathos. His daughter Lucy, the light of his life, greets him with the adorable wall, "Come home," only to immediately treat him like a particularly hairy bogeyman, retreating behind her mother's skirts the moment he reaches for a hug. The man who faced down a monster with one hand is utterly defeated by the wary gaze of a 3-year-old. He compensates, as one does, by groping his wife Sylphiette, who, ever the voice of reason, shuts down his amorous advances with the firm, "Save it for later." The life of a family man is a battlefield, and Rudy is constantly, hilariously, losing the skirmishes. But the true chaos begins with a simple, innocent question. Where is Eris? The answer, it turns out, is that the resident nuclear warhead, the pregnant berserker Sword King, is having a disagreement with Aisha about a cat. Eris, in her infinite wisdom and burgeoning maternal instincts, has decided to expand the menageries. The household already has a magical vine for a doorman, an armadillo, and a giant snow weasel dog. But why not add a feline to the mix? Aisha, the true unsung CEO of the Grey Rat household, is rightfully concerned about the added responsibilities. Rudy, ever the pushover when it comes to his pregnant wives, gives his immediate blessing. What's one more mouth to feed? But this is no ordinary cat. This is a very, very special cat. The door creaks open to reveal not a fluffy kitten, but a fully grown beast woman, Linnea de Doldia, crouched on the floor with a collar around her neck, mewling pathetically. She's dirty, she's dressed in rags, and she has, as Rudy's keenly analytical mind immediately notes, huge honkers. With the straightforward morality of a lightning bolt, had found her being chased by slavers and, in her own unique brand of problem solving, cut the pursuers down and brought the cat home. Because when you see a distressed slave, you don't free her, you adopt her. It's a classic Eris move. Solve a problem by creating a bigger, more complicated one. What follows is a tale of such staggering financial incompetence it would make a goblin weep. Linnea's backstory is a symphony of poor life choices. She tried to become a merchant, accrued crippling debt, and then fell for a scam so transparent it's a wonder she could tie her own shoes. She ended up 20 gold coins more in debt and was sold into slavery to cover the losses. It's a tragic story, yes, but you can't help but feel a significant portion of the blame lies with the top-quality slave herself. Then come the slavers, and here's where the chapter shifts from domestic comedy to a chilling display of soft power. The head slaver, a smarmy little man named Kincho, is terrified. He knows exactly who lives here. He knows about Rudeus's connection to the dragon god Orsted and the future Queen Ariel. He's walking on eggshells, desperately trying to be polite, because he knows that one wrong move against Lilia, the family's wet nurse, would result in his entire bloodline being scrubbed from the face of the planet. The negotiation is a fascinating dance. Kincho can't just let Linnea go. She's already been purchased with a massive down payment by none other than the Boreas family, Eris's own kin, who have a notorious appreciation for beast folk. The slavers are trapped between financial ruin and violent annihilation. In a moment of cowardice, Rudy almost caves. It's Linnea's own fault, he rationalizes. The Boreas family would probably treat her well. It's the pragmatic, coldly logical choice. But then he looks up. He sees his daughter Lucy peeking from the stairs, her little face filled with worry. And in that moment, the calculus changes entirely. This is no longer about a stupid beast woman or a financial dispute. This is about the man he wants to be in his daughter's eyes. He cannot be the father who bows to slavers and hands over a trembling soul who sought sanctuary in their home. So Rudeus Grey Rat does what he does best. He solves the problem with an overwhelming display of wealth. He doesn't negotiate, he obliterates. He hurls bags of magic stones at the slavers, a sum so ludicrous, 1,500 Assuran gold coins, that it leaves them stunned and compliant. It's a victory, but a Pyrrhic one, bought with a king's ransom. You can almost hear Aisha's future sigh of exasperation as the family's savings evaporate to save a cat that can talk. In the end, Linnea is saved. The slavers are pacified. But as Rudy turns, flushed with the triumph of having been a hero for his daughter to see, the stairs are empty. Lucy is gone. The moment is lost. The chapter closes with the sobering reality. He saved her, but she is still a slave. Now she's just his slave. 1,500 coin slave. Because in the world of Mushoku Tensei, even acts of heroism come with a price tag, and happy endings are often just the beginning of a much more complicated and expensive story. And so we return to the ever-chaotic Grey Rat household, where the line between rescuer and slave owner is as blurry as Rudeus's moral compass. The other beast woman, our 1,500 gold coin cat, has been officially installed as a maid. The family's reaction is a masterclass in rationalization. Aisha, the pragmatic CEO of the house, sees it as a financial investment. Linnea will work off her astronomical debt, at a rate of 1 silver coin a month, meaning she'll be free in a month, meaning she'll be free in a cool. Ares sees her as a new pet to cuddle and play with. And Sylphiette and Roxy, they praise Rudeus for his loyalty to a friend, right up until they hear the price tag, at which point Roxy's gaze becomes a laser of suspicion, zeroing in on him, laceless noble potential motivations. Some reputations, it seems, are impossible to live down. But the real drama shifts to the hallowed halls of the University of Magic. Rudeus and Roxy head to campus, and we are treated to a moment of pure, unadulterated spousal pride. Roxy, in a move that is both adorable and fiercely possessive, publicly clings to Rudy and flashes a peace sign to a group of gawking students, marking her territory for all to see. It's a small human moment in a life often dominated by cosmic threats, and it's wonderfully endearing. This sets the stage for the main event, the entrance ceremony. And who should be standing at the podium, radiating a nervous authority? None other than Norn Greyrat, the new student council president. Our little Norn, the girl who once viewed her brother with a mixture of fear and resentment, is now a leader, giving a speech about rules and conduct. It's a proud, emotional moment for Rudy, who swells with brotherly pride, right up until she spots him in the crowd, gets flustered, and takes a spectacular tumble. The moment of majesty is gone, replaced by the charming clumsiness we know and love. And then we meet the new blood. Enter our trio of scholarship students, Rayfert, an elf so devastatingly handsome, he makes Greek statues look like lumpy clay. Manal, a dwarf with a chip on his shoulder the size of his beard, and Granel, the timid second son of the ousted first Prince Grabble, essentially a political refugee. They are the new generation, brimming with arrogance and ambition. Rayfert, in particular, immediately starts rating Norn a B tier and boldly declares his intention to become top dog and make her his woman. This is where the chapter becomes a brilliant comedy of errors. Rudeus, the legendary quagmire, the feared subordinate of the dragon god, is standing right there. But to these arrogant newcomers, he's just another face in the crowd. They casually badmouth him to his face, with Rayfert even condescendingly promising to free the common students from Rudeus's oppression, utterly unaware that he's making this grand speech ode to the oppressor himself. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Rudy, for his part, is too baffled and amused to even be angry, mentally debating whether to intervene or let Norn handle her own problems. But the universe has a funnier way of resolving this. Enter Linnea, the reformed-ish delinquent, swaggering through the crowd like she still owns the place. The moment she appears, the two braggart boys from the Great Forest, Ray and Me, transform from proud princes into terrified mice. They avert their eyes, they stammer, they deny knowing her. It's a glorious power shift. Linnea was their childhood bully, and the trauma is instant and palpable. And here comes the masterstroke of misunderstanding. As Linnea towers over her cowering underlings, who steps in to save the day, President Norn with her entourage in tow. But she doesn't confront Linnea. No, she marches straight past the actual bully and directly confronts her brother. She thinks Rudeus is the one terrorizing the first years. The crowd, the narrative, everyone sees Rudeus, not as a bemused bystander, but as the puppet master of intimidation. His reputation as a powerful, unpredictable mage, and his new status as Linnea's owner have cast him in the role of the ultimate campus villain. Norn publicly scolds him, accusing him of bullying and slave-keeping, forcing the mighty Rudeus Greyrat to bow his head and apologize in front of the entire student body. It's a perfect, humiliating, and hilarious reversal. In his attempt to be a supportive background brother, he's been cast as the main antagonist. His desire to protect his sister only undermines her authority and makes him look like an overbearing mob boss. The chapter ends with Norn gracefully welcoming the terrified new students, her reputation bolstered by having put the feared Rudeus in his place, while Rudy slinks away, once again a victim of his own terrifying legend. This is the core of Mushoku Tensei's genius. It seamlessly blends the epic with the mundane, showing us that even for a man fighting a war against a man, God, the most complex battles are often fought on the field of social perception and family dynamics. Rudeus can buy a person's freedom, but he can't buy a good reputation. He can slay dragons, but he can't escape the judgmental glare of his little sister. And honestly, We wouldn't have it any other way. Welcome back to the whirlwind that is Rudeus Greyrat's life, where the line between saving the world and managing a chaotic household is thinner than the plot armor in a shonen anime. Our hero has traded in his lizard-slaying gear for our new equally daunting mission, a business meeting with his two most brilliant and socially awkward allies. The scene opens with Rudeus and Cliff Grimoire, the one-eyed priest genius, heading to the secret office. Cliff, now a father, carries the weight of both mysterious wooden boxes and paternal responsibility. Their conversation is a poignant glimpse into the man Cliff has become. He reflects on his own orphan childhood, finding profound meaning in caring for his own son, Clive. It's a quiet human moment that contrasts sharply with the cosmic scale problems they're about to address. He offers Rudeus absolution for his paternal guilt, a role that suits the former holy knight surprisingly well. But the destination shatters the calm. They arrive at the lair of the dragon god himself. Or the moment they cross the threshold, Cliff's body betrays him. His legs tremble, his instincts scream enemy, a visceral reaction to the curse that makes Orsted the most lonely and terrifying CEO in the world. And what is their business? They're conducting a product demo for the most niche item imaginable, anti-curse helmets. Let that sink in. Cliff Grimoire, in a staggering display of intellectual prowess, has been designing magical headgear to contain a curse that has plagued the god for centuries, and he's making progress. The current model is a clunky, suffocating, vision-blocking monstrosity that looks like a prop from a bad sci-fi movie. But it works. It softens the curse from murderous rage to loathsome boss. It's a testament to Cliff's genius that he's achieved in 1 year what Orsted failed to accomplish in countless loops. The dragon god himself is shocked, offering a rare, genuine word of thanks that leaves Rudeus practically floating. It's a small, monumental victory in a war of attrition. With the divine business concluded, Rudeus slips into his latest project, the miniature magic armor. It's a classic case of engineering trade-offs. To make it smaller, they've sacrificed power and stability. The current version is powerful, but it's a far cry from the hulking prototype that could level castles. They're stuck in the frustrating cycle of innovation, each step forward revealing 2 new problems to solve. It's a perfect metaphor for Rudeus's life, constant, incremental improvement against a backdrop of overwhelming odds. Then, we shift to Zenoba's workshop, and the tone takes a sharp turn into pure comedy. Rudeus, having learned from past dramatic encounters, knocks before entering. His caution is rewarded with a scene of utter panic, a naked, bleeding, and terrified Julie. Rudeus's mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion, envisioning a crime scene. The reality is far more mundane, yet somehow more awkward. Julie has gotten her first period. The brilliant minds that grapple with cursed deities and power armor are utterly flummoxed by a natural biological process. It's a hilarious and grounding moment, reminding us that even in a world of magic, puberty is a universal constant. Amidst the chaos, they discuss their other pet project, propaganda. Rudeus's plan to rehabilitate the image of the super tribe through picture books and action figures is proceed. The products are charmingly amateurish, crafted by Zenoba and Norn, but they face a critical bottleneck. They have no sales department. Rudeus's first thought for a business manager, the recently enslaved, financially illiterate, and easily scammed Linya. He immediately dismisses the idea, a rare moment of stunning self-awareness. The man will spend a king's ransom to save a friend, but wisely draws the line at letting her manage the books. The chapter culminates in a return to the Greyrat household, which is now less a home and more a vibrant, chaotic ecosystem. Linya, the Beast Woman, has fully embraced her new role as a maid, prancing around in a custom-made outfit courtesy of Aisha, who is visibly thrilled to have a new subordinate to manage. The family dinner is a symphony of domestic bliss and subtle anxieties. Eris, the pregnant Sword King, is still treating her condition as a minor inconvenience, practicing her swordsmanship to the horror of the more sensible Sylphies. The women casually discuss Rudeus's harem, casting suspicious glances his way while he protests his innocence, mostly. We end the day with Rudeus performing his nightly rituals, tucking in his daughter who still views him as a hairy stranger, staring with rapt fascination as Roxy breastfeeds, and stealing a moment of intimacy with Sylphiette. It's a satisfying mundane conclusion to a day filled with God, curses, leading dolls, and catgirl maids. This chapter masterfully illustrates the core appeal of Mushoku Tensei. It never lets the epic scale of its overarching plot overshadow the small, intimate, and often absurd details of its characters' lives. Rudeus Greyrat is a man fighting a future, seeing God, but his most immediate concerns are his daughter's fear of him, his wife's dangerous workout routines, and finding a decent merchant for his supered action figures. And honestly, isn't that the most relatable kind of heroism? And so we return to our hero, Rudeus Greyrat, in his natural habitat, grinding. He's sequestered himself in his secret office, pushing his limits day after day. He's mastering the Dragon God style, a martial art built on efficiency and cunning, perfect for a mage who relies on his wits. He's refining his spell sequences, turning combat into a deadly pre-programmed dance, quagmire to entrap, electric to stun, and the ever-reliable stone cannon to finish the job. It's a methodical, almost clinical approach to violence, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos that awaits him at home. Because when Arsted finally gives him a 3-day reprieve, Rudeus returns not to a sanctuary, but to a household on the brink of a nervous breakdown. The first sign is Linnea, our favorite cat girl, sitting in Arcesa at the entrance, forced to reflect on her mistakes. It's a comical image, but one that foreshadows the storm within. The initial welcome is deceptively warm. Lucy, for the first time, doesn't flee from him but latches onto his leg, a tiny, desperate barnacle. It's a heartwarming moment, but the seasoned viewer knows, in the Greyrat household, uncharacteristic affection is often a symptom of underlying stress. The child is seeking stability, and her father is its embodiment, however fleeting his presence may be. Then, we peel back the layers. Lilia, the unflappable rock of the family, is pale and exhausted, worn down by the Herculean task of managing a pregnant Sword King who treats doctor's orders as mere suggestions. Eris, in her boundless restlessness, has decided that advanced pregnancy is the perfect time to take up a career as a swordsmanship instructor. The woman is a force of nature, utterly incapable of being contained. But the real core of the conflict is found in the garden with Aisha. The scene is a masterpiece of subtle storytelling. We find the family's brilliant, hyper-competent manager digging a grave for the shattered pieces of her favorite teacup. This isn't just about a broken object. It's a symbol. This cup represented a piece of her identity, a small luxury earned through her own hard work. And Linnea, with her clumsy, unrepentant chaos, has shattered it. Aisha's frustration isn't born from a single incident. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, broken dishes, fur-covered laundry, near misses with the baby. All met with the same cavalier, "Mihaha, my bad." It's the utter lack of remorse, the failure to understand the weight of her actions in a tightly run household that grates on Aisha's every nerve. She, who built her identity on competence and order, is being driven mad by a walking, talking embodiment of disorder. And then, we have the night, the moment that elevates this from a domestic dispute to a full-blown crisis of values. Eris, in what she likely considers a stroke of wifely generosity and problem-solving, decides to solve everyone's problems in the most Eris way possible. She parades into Rudeus's room, not for herself, but to present him with a gift-wrapped Linnea, laid out in his bed, like a particularly voluptuous offering. Her logic is a terrifying glimpse into the Boreas family's moral compass. It's not cheating since she's a slave. The ghosts of Sorrows and Philip must be nodding in proud approval from the afterlife. What follows is a scene of pure, unadulterated absurdity. Linnea, for her part, is a whirlwind of conflicting motives. She's muttering prayers to her parents, then trash, talking her rival persona, all while openly admitting, once rejected, that her master plan was to get pregnant, become wife number 4, and have her astronomical debt wiped clean. You have to admire the sheer brazen transparency of her scheme. And Rudeus? In what might be one of his finest moments, he does the only sane thing you can. He picks up the seductive willing cat girl and unceremoniously dumps her into the hallway, slamming the door on the entire sordid affair. His fidelity, for once, is absolute. He recognizes this for what it is, a transactional betrayal that would poison his relationships with Sylphie, Roxy, and already furious Aisha. It's a moment of profound clarity in a sea of chaos, but the damage is done. The shouting wakes the babies. Sophia is driven to a rare outburst, and an uneasy silence descends upon the house. The chapter closes on a profoundly somber note. The happy family facade has cracked, revealing the exhausting, unsustainable tensions beneath. Aisha is resentful, Lilia is drained, Sophia stressed, and Linnea is a destabilizing agent of chaos, too traumatized and financially desperate to even comprehend the friction she causes. Rudeus, the would-be savior, is left to ponder a simple, devastating truth. He can slay dragons and outmaneuver gods, but the complex, delicate ecosystem of his own home is falling apart. And the worst part, he has to leave in 3 days for another job, abandoning the simmering pot just as it's about to boil over. The man, God doesn't need to send apostles, he just needs to wait for the Grey Rat household to implode on its own. Well, folks, gather round. Here we are again, in the endlessly complicated life of one Rudeus Grey Rat. Our hero, the man who has faced down dragons, demons, and the whims of a maniacal god, finds himself on the brink of defeat. And his greatest adversary, a mischievous cat girl with a talent for creating domestic chaos and sexual tension thicker than the great forest. The problem, as it so often is, was Linnea. Having her in the house was like trying to relax in a room with a lit fuse attached to a powder keg. Her very presence was a constant, purring temptation, and Rudeus, being a man of, let's say, historically robust appetites, knew it was only a matter of time before his willpower crumbled. The specter of the future from that cursed diary loomed large. A future where Sylphiette would take his daughter and leave, all because he couldn't keep his hands off the family's debt-ridden feline maid. The irony is palpable. He can alter the course of history, but he can't seem to manage his own libido. So, the only logical solution was to get her out of the house. But this is Rudeus we're talking about. He can't just write off the astronomical sum he paid for her. 1,500 Assuran gold coins is not chump change even for a renowned mage. No, she had to work it off. And thus began the comically tragic quest to find a job for the utterly unemployable Linnea. His mental brainstorming session was a masterclass in shooting down every single terrible idea. Researcher for Zenoba, the man nearly had a conniption just seeing her, hastily hiding his precious dolls as if she were a walking tornado of destruction. Personal maid for Nor, a recipe for another helping of the same awkwardness currently poisoning his home. Adventurer, she'd likely get herself killed before earning a single copper. It was a truly helpless exercise. Linnea, for all her street smarts and raw charisma, was a square peg, and the entire world seemed to be a collection of round holes. But a walk through the University of Magic revealed a fascinating truth. This chaotic, debt-ridden maid in a frilly uniform was still a queen among her people. The delinquents and beastfolk students still treated her with a reverence bordering on awe. She walked those halls not as a servant, but as a returning legend, shooing students out of her boss's way with the authority of a mob enforcer. It was here that Rudeus saw a glimmer of potential, not in her ability to file paperwork or cast spells, but in her innate, almost magnetic, ability to lead the undesirables. The real breakthrough, however, came from an unexpected source. Cliff, while discussing the ever-present problem of Orsted's curse, a conversation that somehow meandered into the olfactory sensitivities of beastfolk, a brilliant or perhaps brilliantly stupid idea was born. They needed test subjects, lots of them, and who better to gather a crowd of shady characters than the queen of the shadiest characters herself. And so, with the reckless abandon of a man who has run out of all other options, Rudeus decided to go into business. Why find Linnea a job when you can create one for her? The plan was as audacious as it was vague. Start an organization, a guild, a company, a collective of misfits who could take on odd jobs, from sales to mercenary work, all while secretly serving as a talent pool and research group for Orsted's cause. One has to admire the sheer scale of the leap. From my maid is trying to seduce me to I shall now become a shadowy corporate benefactor in the span of an afternoon. He secured a shabby office, handed Linnea a small fortune in startup capital, and watched in horror as her eyes literally turned into gold coins. The image of entrusting a cat with a bag of gold and hoping it won't immediately lose it down a drain pipe is almost too perfect a metaphor. Knowing this was a recipe for financial disaster, Rudeus played his masterstroke. He enlisted his prodigy sister, Aisha. This was less a business decision and more a desperate plea for a responsible adult to supervise. The scene where he convinces her is a beautiful piece of emotional manipulation disguised as a life lesson. He essentially tells his brilliant, perfectionist little sister that her one failure was not being able to manage the unmanageable Linnea, and that to become a better person, she must not and in hopeless causes. It was a low blow wrapped in brotherly concern, and it worked perfectly. Aisha, with a sigh of resignation that could power a small windmill, agreed to be the brains to Linnea's chaotic brawn. So what do we have? A new, dubiously named enterprise led by a charismatic delinquent, funded by a paranoid time traveler, and audited by a teenage genius who would rather be anywhere else. It's a recipe for either glorious success or a fireball of failure so immense it will be visible from the assured capital. As Rudeus leaves on his next mission, he can only pray that he won't return to find the company bankrupt, his sister driven to madness, and Linnea wearing a fancy collar as Eris's official pet. Frankly, the odds aren't in his favor, but in the world of Mushoku Tensei, the most desperate plans often yield the most unexpected results. Let the entrepreneurial chaos begin. Look what the cat dragged in. Or perhaps, look what the cat girl built while her boss was away playing fairy godmother to star-crossed lovers. We open not with our protagonist, but with the scene of pure, unadulterated camp. A young knight, a kidnapped princess, and a flamboyantly evil wizard named Rudeus, who, and I must emphasize this, vehemently denies accusations of stealing the princess's underwear. It's a theatrical masterpiece of cliches, complete with the conveniently revealed weakness for supered statues and a final, gloriously over-the-top explosion. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a day in the life of Rudeus Greyrat, part-time savior of the timeline, full-time drama club enthusiast. This entire theatrical production was, of course, a meticulously staged job for Orsted. His mission: to manufacture a heroic moment for a cowardly knight, thereby securing a politically convenient marriage and ensuring a useful descendant is born. The sheer absurdity of it all is breathtaking. While other heroes slay dragons, Rudeus is busy writing, directing, and starring in his own low-budget fantasy play, complete with props from his side hustle. One can only imagine the internal monologue as he tumbles off a balcony, forcing a dramatic explosion with his own magic. The man deserves an award for most dedicated method actor. Exhausted but triumphant, he returns home, dreaming of a peaceful reunion with his family, which, in Rudeus's mind, involves a predictable routine of groping his wives and being avoided by his daughter. Charming, but domestic bliss is short-lived. A chilling atmosphere descends the moment he asks about his sister, Aisha. The reports are grim. She's been consorting with questionable characters, a veritable army of shady figures clad head to toe in menacing black. Naturally, Rudeus's mind, a well-oiled machine of anxiety and worst-case scenarios, immediately conjures images of his adorable genius sister being corrupted by mohawked thugs in a smoke-filled den of iniquity. The irony is thick enough to cut with a sword. This is the very organization they commissioned. He gave a chaotic cat girl and his perfectionist sister a bag of gold and a vague directive, and is now shocked, shocked, that it didn't result in a quiet bookkeeping firm. So, our hero, fresh from faking his own death in a tower explosion, musters his courage to storm what he assumes is a den of villains. The reality he finds is profoundly different. The den of villains is, in fact, a highly organized, semi-militarized corporation. His victim, Aisha, is not chained in a corner, but holding court in a dark office, looking like a teenage mob boss. She's flanked by sunglasses, wearing Linnea, the two of them counting piles of gold with the gleeful avarice of storybook dragons. They've created Rook's mercenary band, a bodyguard and security company that has taken the city by storm. The sheer, blinding efficiency of it all is a testament to Aisha's terrifying genius. While Rudeus was away playing puppeteer, she was building an empire. She didn't just gather a few thugs. She created a brand. She designed uniforms, mistaking the gray rat emblem for a tiger, a wonderfully ironic detail, implemented strict Japanese business etiquette. The synchronized bowing is a hilarious touch, and leveraged her connections all the way up to summoning Arumonfi to consult with Nanahashi. Let that sink in. This teenager casually summoned a legendary familiar and charmed the reclusive Rudeus, all for a startup her brother half-heartedly suggested. This chapter is a masterclass in contrasting competencies. Rudeus operates through elaborate, personal, and exhausting deceptions. He is a one-man show. Aisha, on the other hand, is a natural-born executive. She builds systems, delegates, and creates a scalable, profitable business. Rudeus spent a month and a significant portion of his mana to ensure 2 people got married. Aisha, in the same time frame, built a 50-person company that is already turning a profit and becoming an integral part of the city's infrastructure. The real punchline, the beautiful, sardonic twist, is the final reveal of the company's organizational chart. There, in stark black and white, sits Chairman Rudeus Greyrat. He is the titular head, the figurehead of a thriving enterprise he neither understands nor managed. He wanted a small group of expendable test subjects. He got a fully fledged corporation. It's a perfect metaphor for his life, stumbling into monumental success through the sheer, overpowering competence of the women around him. As the chapter closes with ominous news from the Great Forest, one can't help but feel that Rudeus' days of small-scale, personal problem solving are numbered. He is no longer just a powerful mage or a devoted husband. He is, for better or worse, a chairman. And with that title comes a scale of responsibility and chaos he is only just beginning to comprehend. The age of the lone hero is over. Long live the CEO. And so, our hero, Rudeus Greyrat, having successfully transitioned from powerful mage to corporate chairman of a questionable security firm, now faces his next great challenge, a diplomatic mission to the one place on the planet where he is officially registered as a registered sex offender, the Doldia village. The cause for this ill-advised field trip? A panicked letter from the Great Forest. The sacred beast, Leo, whom Rudeus so conveniently summoned to be his daughter's personal bodyguard, has gone missing from their perspective. One must admire the sheer audacity. It's the equivalent of stealing a national monument, then being surprised when the government sends a strongly worded letter. Rudeus, ever the master of proactive crisis management, which is a polite way of saying he only acts when the flames are licking at his heels, decides to return the abducted deity. His travel companions are the beast himself, Leo, and the eternally reluctant Linnea, who views a return to her homeland with the same enthusiasm one might reserve for a root canal. Her fear is palpable. She knows she's returning not as a prodigal daughter, but as a financial and professional failure. The journey begins with a visit to the ever-dramatic Rudeus, who serves as the world's grumpiest interdimensional taxi service. The conversation quickly takes a dark turn, as conversations with ancient demigods often do. Rudeus casually drops the bombshell that if Rudeus ever fathers a son with green hair, the telltale sign of the reincarnated demon, God Laplace, he will not hesitate to murder the infant. It's a delightful little piece of foreshadowing, wrapped in the guise of friendly advice. Welcome to parenthood in the world of Mushoku Tensei, where playdates involve negotiating your child's potential assassination by allies. The teleportation itself is a masterclass in comedic incompetence, courtesy of Nanahoshi's training. Our heroes don't arrive on solid ground, but in the middle of a submerged ruin during the Great Forest's infamous rainy season. The image of Rudeus, one of the world's most powerful mages, clumsily fashioning a misshapen, leaky raft while a cat girl complains and a sacred dog barks directions, is pure poetry. It's a 2-day odyssey of getting lost, fighting monsters, and generally embodying the phrase, "It's about the journey, not the destination," especially when the journey is a soggy, miserable failure. Their arrival at the Doldia village is about as warm as you'd expect. The villagers, a charmingly hostile bunch, immediately swarm them, their memories long and their suspicions longer. They remember Rudeus, the pervert from a decade ago, and they have the opinions about Linnea, the chief's daughter who abandoned her duties. For a moment, it seems Rudeus is destined for a repeat performance in their famously inhospitable jail. But this is where we see the true power dynamics at play. Linnea, for all her cowardice, still has the cloud of her name. And more importantly, Leo, the sacred beast, is the ultimate trump card. The ensuing negotiation is a farcical spectacle, mediated through Linnea's wildly unreliable translations of Leo's barks. The revelation that Rudeus's infant daughter Laura is the prophesied savior is met with understandable skepticism. One can hardly blame the beast warriors for being doubtful. It's quite the claim from the man who once famously ogled their sacred guardian. The true star of this chapter, however, is Chief Guise. The man has undergone a stunning transformation from a hot-headed warrior into a weary, pragmatic leader and a deeply disappointed father. His handling of the Linnea's situation is a thing of beauty. When Rudeus, in a moment of stunning honesty, reveals the truth of her debt and servitude, Gaius's reaction isn't rage, but resigned humiliation. He effectively disowns her on the spot, telling Rudeus to feel free to do whatever you want with her, and even suggests using her as a mating season stress relief toy. It's a brutal yet somehow understandable moment of paternal despair. He's not just a chief managing a crisis. He's a father cleaning up his daughter's catastrophic mess and apologizing to the man she indebted herself to. Just when it seems the drama has concluded, we get the final, brilliant punchline. The reason for Pinna's absence, she's in the very same jail Rudeus once occupied. The scene of her slovenly scratching and utterly defeated form is a hilarious parallel to Rudeus's own past disgrace. Her immediate desperate plea to boss Rudeus for help confirms a universal truth. No matter how far you travel, your problematic friends will always find a way to need bailing out of prison. In the end, Rudeus achieves his goal with surprising ease, but leaves with more than he bargained for. A formal invitation for a ceremony in 15 years, the weight of a world, saving prophecy on his daughter's tiny shoulders, and the looming certainty that he will be taking at least one, if not two more beast girls back to his already overcrowded and chaotic household. The man came to return a dog and ended up expanding his entourage. Some things, it seems, are simply destiny. And so we arrive at what is perhaps the most high-stakes, intellectually demanding crisis in Rudeus Greyrat's career. A culinary whodunit. Forget the man. God, forget world-ending prophecies. The true test of our hero's mettle is solving the case of the pilfered lizard Jerky. The scene of the crime, the Doldia village storehouse. The victim, a stockpile of dried rainforest lizard meat, but to preserve for the harsh rainy season. The prime, and only suspect, none other than Persona at Doldia, the prodigal daughter returned, a graduate of the prestigious Renoa University of Magic, and a candidate for the lofty position of matriarch. Or at least, she was a candidate. Her career trajectory took a nosedive straight into a jail cell when she was discovered amidst the carnage of empty boxes, crumbs on her face, and a belly bloated with contraband. The evidence is, frankly, overwhelming. The beast folk's primary investigative tool, their unparalleled sense of smell, leaves little room for doubt. The scent of the jerky was on her breath, in her saliva, and quite literally filling her stomach. It's an open and shut case. But Persona, with the desperate theatrics of a seasoned drama queen, clings to a ludicrous story of being knocked out from behind by a mysterious assailant. It's the kind of defense that wouldn't hold up in any court, but this is the Great Forest, and Rudeus, ever the sucker for a damsel in distress, especially one with a compelling chest-to-waist ratio, decides to play detective. What follows is a farcical investigation that would make Sherlock Holmes weep into his deerstalker. Rudeus, appointing a bewildered Linnea as his Watson, interviews the witnesses. We learn the extenuating circumstances. Persona had heroically exhausted her mana healing warriors after a monster attack, collapsed from the strain, and was then immediately sent on a grueling guard shift without a single bite to eat. The picture painted is not of a greedy glutton, but of an overworked, starving healer pushed to her absolute limit. It's a testament to the Doldia's rigid survivalist mentality that they would let their future leader faint from hunger in the name of rules. Yet, even with this context, the truth is obvious to everyone except Rudeus, who requires a theatrical, divine intervention style interrogation to crack the case. Cornering Persona in her cell, he doesn't present new evidence, he simply invokes the name of his god, Orsted. The sheer, pants, wetting terror that the mere mention of the dragon god inspires is enough to make Persona confess instantly. It's less a triumph of deduction and more a demonstration of the power of having a terrifyingly powerful patron. The great Jerky mystery is solved. The culprit was, shockingly, the person found sleeping in a nest of jerky wrappers. But the real drama begins after the confession. Just when it seems Persona is doomed to a life of disgrace, Linnea, her lifelong rival and fellow failure, steps in with a shocking display of loyalty. Shedding her usual arrogant, self-serving persona, she makes a heartfelt plea to her father. She argues for his redemption, not because the crime was excusable, but because of the years of effort and potential they both possessed. It's a moment that redefines their entire relationship. Their rivalry wasn't born of hatred, but of a shared, desperate ambition to be worthy of leading their people. Linnea's request is illogical, unfair, and completely emotionally compelling, and Rudeus, the eternal softy, backs her up. He knows it's the wrong decision by the book. He knows it's selfish. But he also recognizes the value of effort and the cruelty of a system that would discard a talented individual for a single, desperate mistake. It's a fascinating character moment for guys too. The once hot-headed warrior has matured into a pragmatic leader who, despite his exasperation, is willing to bend the rules for a greater potential gain. Sending Persona with the sacred beast isn't just leniency. It's an investment in a future alliance. The chapter closes with the perfect bittersweet punchline. As Persona gazes nostalgically at her second home, Sharia, finally granted a reprieve, Linnea leans in to deliver the final twist of the knife. Her altruism came with a price tag. For a while, she purrs, "You're going to be my underling," the rivalry continues. But the dynamic has irrevocably shifted. Linnea isn't just the debtor anymore, she's the manager. And Rudeus? He's returning home with yet another chaotic beast, girl in tow, his household now officially a sanctuary for wayward meat, obsessed delinquents with leadership potential. The man can't help but collect them. It's his true, hidden talent. Just when you thought the drama in Rudeus Greyrat's life couldn't get more convoluted, we descend from the high-stakes world of beast-folk politics and world-saving prophecy into a far more intimate and insidious mystery. Welcome to the case of the secretive slave, a story that proves that the most complex puzzles aren't found in ancient ruins, but in the heart of a teenage girl. Our chapter opens with a return to domesticity. Rudeus is back in his element, tinkering with magic armor prototypes with his equally obsessed partner in crime, Zenoba. But something is amiss in the kingdom of dolls and figures. Zenoba, a man usually concerned only with the curve of a sculpted thigh or the gloss on a painted eye, is troubled. His protege, his adopted daughter in all but name, the slave girl Julie, is acting strangely. She's been secretive. She goes to the market alone. She hides her latest work. For a relationship built on the shared obsessive creation of art, this is the ultimate betrayal. Zenoba's concern is a fascinating thing to behold. It's not the anger of a master whose properties must be behaving, but the genuine, confused hurt of a father figure being shut out by a daughter entering puberty. Rudeus, ever the bastion of awkward wisdom, suggests the obvious. Maybe it's just that time of life. Perhaps she's buying her first bra or writing angsty poetry about the boy who sharpens her chisels. But Zenoba, in his single-minded way, can't let it go. He pivots from this domestic worry to what he believes is a pleasant distraction, a visit to a master craftsman of boxes. Yes, boxes. Or, as we soon learn, beds. Because in the world of Mushoku Tensei, even storage containers have delusions of grandeur. The artisan Belfried is a character straight out of a gothic novel, a tall, gaunt, frazzled-haired genius who treats his wooden doll containers with the reverence of a father preparing a nursery. He doesn't make boxes, he crafts beds for his daughters. The level of eccentricity on display is staggering, and one must admire a man who has found his calling so completely, even if that calling is building miniature four-posture beds for inanimate objects. It is here, in this den of artistic obsession, that the plot thickens like poorly mixed glue. Belfry reveals the source of his latest creative frenzy, Julie. She came to him secretly with a figure, and not just any figure, a masterpiece, a creation so sublime, it inspired this master craftsman to produce his finest work in a fever dream of inspiration. And then he drops a bombshell. he tried to buy it from her. For 200, no, 350 Assuran gold coins. The air freezes. The pieces click into place with an almost audible snap. Julie, their beloved Julie, is not just being a moody teenager. She is secretly producing master-level artwork and attempting to sell it on the black market. The conclusion is as heartbreaking as it is obvious to our heroes. Julie is trying to buy her freedom. What follows is a masterclass in dramatic irony and self-flagellation. Rudeus and Zenoba spiral into a pit of guilt and recrimination. Haven't we been good to her? We fed her, clothed her, taught her a valuable trade. We even pay her a wage. They see themselves as benevolent benefactors, completely blind to the fundamental power imbalance at the core of their relationship. They gave her everything except the one thing no one should have to ask for: her own autonomy. The fact that she feels she has to secretly amass a fortune to purchase what is rightfully hers never seems to cross their minds. It's a poignant commentary on the limits of kind slavery. You can be the world's nicest jailer, but you're still a jailer. Zenoba's reaction is particularly telling. The man who once cared for little beyond his collection is now visibly wounded, his dream of a lifelong artistic partnership crumbling before his eyes. Yet, in a moment of profound decency, he resigns himself to it. If she wishes to be free, we shall grant it. It's a quiet, powerful moment that shows how much he has truly come to care for her as a person, not just a pair of skilled hands. They return to confront her with the jangling belfry in tow like a desperate, art-obsessed bounty hunter. The scene is set for a dramatic, tear-filled confrontation. Julie emerges innocent and smiling, only for her face to fall at the sight of Belfried. The jig is up, and then Zenoba, with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, delivers the line that shatters the tension. Julie, do you wish to stop being my slave? Her eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated shock. And in that moment, we, audience, are left hanging on the cliff's edge, realizing with dawning horror that our two genius protagonists may have, once again, spectacularly misread the entire situation. They were so busy writing the tragedy of her betrayal that they never stopped to consider she might be writing a completely different story altogether. The masters of deduction have become the kings of assumption, and the real mystery is only just beginning. And so, we arrive at the emotional core of this volume, a chapter that masterfully dismantles every assumption we and our protagonists have ever made. Forget the man, God, forget political intrigue. The most profound battles are fought in the quiet spaces between people who care for each other but are terrified of losing what they have. We begin not in the present, but in the bleak, gray past of Juliet, or rather, the girl who had no name. Her backstory is a devastating portrait of generational poverty and despair. Born to dwarf artisans with more talent than business sense, her earliest memories are not of lullabies, but of the hunched, guilt-ridden backs of her parents as they worked themselves to the bone in a losing battle against debt. This is not a childhood, it's a slow, grinding suffocation. The moment her parents sell themselves into slavery, leaving her as unwanted, defective goods on the market, is the final nail in the coffin of her hope. By the time a young, emotionally stunted Rudeus and a doll, obsessed Zenoba find her, she is not a person, but a creature waiting for death. Her whispered, "I don't want to die," isn't a cry for life, but a primal biological reflex against the void. This context makes her current life nothing short of a miracle. The narrative beautifully contrasts her past of bitter soups and cold corners with the warmth, stability, and purpose she finds with Zenoba. He isn't just a master, he is a patient teacher, a fussy older brother, and a fellow artist. He gives her not just food and shelter, but an identity, a name, a skill, and a shared passion. The revelation that her wage was Rudeus's idea adds another layer to his character. For all his perversions and flaws, his fundamental decency often shines through. Julie's life is no longer about survival, but about the joy of creation, the warmth of fine alcohol, and the profound satisfaction of making someone she admires genuinely happy. This brings us to the catalyst of our drama, the masterpiece. The moment Julie completes a figurine that transcends her own skill, that feels inspired, is one of the most authentic portrayals of an artist breakthrough I've ever seen. It's not just a well-made object, it's a piece of her soul, a physical manifestation of all the care and knowledge poured into her by Zenoba. And what is her first, most instinctive thought? Not to sell it, not to hoard it, but to present it to him in the most perfect way possible. The entire misunderstanding that follows is a tragic comedy of errors, built on a foundation of deep-seated insecurity. Julie, whose entire worldview was forged in the crucible of abandonment, cannot conceive that a mistake, knocking over a shelf in the eccentric Belfridge shop, wouldn't result in catastrophic punishment. In her mind, the only currency she has to pay for her transgression is the one thing of value she's ever created. So when Zanoba, with his characteristic lack of social grace, blurts out, "Do you wish to stop being my slave?" he doesn't hear a question. He hears a condemnation. It's the sound of the floor dropping out from under her all over again. The scene where she sobbingly offers her masterpiece to Belfry is heart-wrenching. It's the act of someone sacrificing their greatest treasure to avoid being thrown back into the cold. And the reactions around her are a study in character. Rudeus, the pragmatist, immediately senses the wrongness and physically intervenes, his protective instincts overriding the confusion. Belfried, the obsessed artist, can only see the object of his desire, and Zanoba? His reaction is pure, unadulterated artistic ecstasy, mixed with profound personal hurt. He isn't angry she might leave, he's devastated that she created something so beautiful and didn't share it with him first. His tearful, snot-filled plea to own the figurine is simultaneously ridiculous and deeply moving. He doesn't command her as a master, he begs her as a fellow devotee. The resolution is a wave of cathartic relief. The misunderstanding clears not through grand speeches, but through the simple, honest language they both understand, their shared love for the craft. Julie wasn't trying to buy her freedom, she was trying to buy a box worthy of her gift to him. The irony is exquisite. Our genius protagonists, who concocted elaborate schemes to save kingdoms, nearly destroyed their own little paradise because they failed to understand the heart of the girl they had saved. But the chapter doesn't end on a purely happy note. That final, chilling scene, a letter from the Shuron kingdom falling from Zanoba's hand, his muttered, "I suppose there was no way it could ever last," is a masterful cliffhanger. It reminds us that this peaceful, quirky life of dolls and magic is a fragile bubble. The outside world, with its politics and perils, is always knocking at the door. The masterpiece was saved, the misunderstanding was resolved, but the future of this found family now hangs in the balance, threatening to shatter the very happiness Julie so desperately tried to preserve. Another day dawns in the Grey Rat household, a symphony of domestic chaos that is both utterly mundane and profoundly extraordinary. Our narrator, Rudeus, awakens not to an alarm clock, but to the divine sight of his wife Roxy, the woman he literally worships, sleeping peacefully beside their blue-haired daughter Laura. It's a scene of pure, unadulterated bliss, a testament to the life he's built. Even the family's sacred beast, Leo, is there, looking less like a mythical guardian and more like a smug, overgrown puffball at the foot of the bed. It's almost comical to think this cozy, sunlit room contains a baby prophesied to be a savior. The weight of that destiny hangs in the air, a subtle, unspoken tension beneath the morning yawns and the cracking of Rudeus's bat. This is the life Rudeus fought so hard for, a life of simple pleasures and complicated family dynamics. He moves through the house like a conductor of a sleepy orchestra, checking on his other wives. There's Sophiette, curled up with their daughter Lucy in a picture of maternal serenity, a sight that warms his heart even as his own. And then there's Eris's room, where the morning's tranquility is broken, not by the red-haired Sword King, but by the pitiful groans of Persena. Persena, the dog-type beast woman, who, in a stunning display of overconfidence and a complete lack of self-preservation, believed Eris's intense physical affection was a sign of her own irresistible charm. She's now learning the hard way that being Eris's favorite cuddle buddy is akin to being caught in a hydraulic press. The poor girl's chest aches from a night of bone-crushing hugs, a fitting, if slightly cruel, cosmic punishment for her arrogance. Rudeus, ever the gentleman, and already sated from his time with Roxy, heals her with a touch of magic, a small act of mercy in a household that often runs on chaos. The morning continues with a strangely poignant moment outside. Eris, her belly swollen with their child, stands guard like a pregnant, battle-ready statue. They discuss baby names, and it's a perfect microcosm of their personalities. Eris, with the subtlety of a warhammer, suggests names like Ars and Aldebaran, legendary heroes who probably slayed dragons before breakfast. Rudeus, meanwhile, is already thinking of elegant girls' names, trying to plan for every contingency. It's a sweet, slightly absurd conversation that highlights how Eris is slowly, unconsciously, adapting to motherhood, even if her primary method of showing affection still involves rearranging people's spines. Breakfast is a grand affair, a gathering of the entire clan that feels both warm and overwhelmingly crowded. The table is a stage for the family's diverse personalities, the sleepy Roxy nursing Lara, the dignified Eris casually using a traumatized Persona as a lap pillow, and the ever-efficient Aisha and Lilia serving everyone. It's in this familiar chaos that a small, significant bomb is dropped. Norn, Rudeus's younger sister, tentatively floats the idea of becoming an adventurer after graduation. The reaction in the room is a silent, collective gasp you can almost hear. Rudeus's internal monologue is a masterclass in panicked, big brotherly concern. He pictures her tripping over a root and impaling herself on a goblin stick or being swarmed by opportunistic boys. He handles it with surprising grace, telling her he'd worry but not oppose it, a far cry from the controlling brother he could have been. But the real discussion erupts the moment she leaves for school. Aisha and Lilia are vehemently opposed, preaching security in an advantageous marriage. Sophie and Eris are on the side of freedom and following one's dreams. And then Roxy, with the weary wisdom of someone who ran away from home to become an adventurer, delivers the killer line. If she really wants to, she'll just do it, with or without their permission. It's a sobering reminder that you can't cage the ones you love, a lesson Rudeus knows all too well. The day's business takes him to the mercenary band headquarters, a front for his intelligence network. That is, let's be honest, a glorified syndicate run by a teenage prodigy, Isha, and two beast girls vying for power. Persona, now styling herself as the assistant vice chief while wearing sunglasses indoors, is clearly having the time of her life playing gangster. Rudeus's real purpose is to get Orsted's approval to hire staff who aren't likely to beat men. God apostles, a bureaucratic headache that comes with working for a cursed dragon. His meeting with Orsted provides some crucial, if unsettling, answers about his daughter's destiny. It turns out Lore has essentially usurped the role of a previous savior, the man who was supposed to defeat the demon god Laplace. Orsted, in his typical, emotionally stunted way, shrugs this off. Laplace is his problem to deal with anyway. The savior was just a helpful bonus in previous loops. The real revelation is that the man, God's intense focus on keeping Rudeus and Roxy apart, was precisely all because of the powerful destiny their union would produce. Our little blue-haired baby is such a spanner in the works for the man. God that he's practically tearing his ethereal hair out. It's equal parts terrifying and empowering for Rudeus. The best defense for his daughter is the sacred beast, Leo, whose own destiny is so strong, it creates a protective bubble around her. It's a small comfort, but in this world you take what you can get. Just as Rudeus is settling into his new normal, juggling family, his secret boss, and his lingering anxiety, the chapter delivers its final masterful blow. He arrives at the university expecting to discuss magic armor prototypes, only to walk into a tense confrontation on the stairs. The scene is dramatic, almost theatrical. Cliff, usually the voice of reason, is hysterical, grabbing Zenoba by the collar and screaming about going to your death. Zenoba, the gentle giant who usually radiates a childlike passion for figurines, is ice cold, his gaze so dismissive it reduces Rudeus to an insect in his eyes. And then, the reason for this chilling transformation is revealed with brutal simplicity. A royal command from his younger brother Pax, the same Pax who took Milia captive years ago. The same spoiled prince has now orchestrated a bloody coup, murdering his own father and elder brother to seize the throne of the Chiron kingdom. And now, with his new regime weakened and under attack, he has summoned Zenoba home. Zenoba delivers this news with a casualness that is more frightening than any outburst. He speaks of patricide, fratricide, and war as if discussing the weather. He coldly tries to return Julie, his apprentice and former slave, to Rudeus, breaking the poor girl's heart in the process. The promise of a peaceful life, the careful preparations for a distant future battle, it all shatters in an instant. The next battle isn't coming. It's already here. It arrived not with a demonic roar, but with a royal summons, and it's calling one of Rudeus's most cherished friends to a viper's nest of political intrigue and almost certain death. The calm morning has ended, and the storm has finally terrifyingly begun. And so the domestic dream shatters with a single royal letter, proving that no amount of personal growth can save you from your friend's homicidal little brother. Rudeus can manage a harem, a mercenary band, and a toddler who fears him, but the political storms of the world wait for no one. Let me know in the comments, are you Team Linea or Team Persona? And just how doomed do you think Sonoba is? If you haven't read it yet, do yourself a favor and dive into this volume. The chaos is absolutely worth it.